This is an orange, a whole orange. It is an integrated orange, but if I split that orange, I get two half oranges. And even though these oranges on one side, if I just show them you like that, they tend to have a thick skin. However, they are not completely protected because they need each other to complete themselves and to be whole. And by separating, they become vulnerable. And that's the same thing that happens with us humans. When we separate from nature and from one another, we become vulnerable. Why do we separate though? I strongly believe that it's due to our unhealthy relationship to fear, and we are going to discover that. Switch backgrounds, and I no longer have my orange. Fuck! We separate from what we call other because we're afraid of it, and by separating, we believe that we ensure our safety. But that's not always the case. Let's see an example. The example is the coronavirus crisis and Jenny's story with it. Jen is an average American between 20 and 30 years of age. She watches a lot of mainstream content on social media, and she watches the news, which is heavily biased towards spreading fearful information. When she hears that the coronavirus had struck the USA, already infecting tens of thousands of people, she begins to feel panic because she feels like she could be affected by it. And this is a new thing. We don't really have the remedies yet. She doesn't really bother to think strategically. Nobody taught it to her, nor she was motivated to do so. So she decides that she is gonna ensure safety by going into home quarantine and separating. She buys up all the groceries that she could find. Toilet paper, everything. While doing that, she gets into confrontation with the other customers that are doing the same at the grocery stores that she's visiting. At home, she lives enclosed and she ceases to see her friends because she's afraid that any one of them could be the bearer of the dangerous and unknown virus. Jenny answers to the threats with attachments and separation. She attaches to her material things and separates from the people around her to maintain her sense of safety and health. This may as very well account for the virus threat on the short term. However, what she is not preparing for is the long-term and multifaceted effects of the coronavirus, naming one, the economic crisis that is about to come. Let's see another example of a reaction to fear. This time, we're not looking at Jenny, we're still in the USA and during the coronavirus crisis. However, now our example is Grant Cardone, owner of Cardone Ventures, a producer of content on YouTube, and an American millionaire. He gets his information from credible and confidential sources. And when he hears that the coronavirus is about to hit and has already hit, he also gets afraid. He has a great company, a big company that he has to account for, and also a lot of people. However, he reacts differently. First up, he starts to strategize. First, he sits down and detaches from everything. Mentally, he goes to zero. What if he loses everything? What then? How do I bounce back? After that, he takes a look at what he currently has, all his assets, and how those assets could become liabilities. His company, his staff, his family even, and his private jet. After getting done with strategy and figuring out what he wants to do, he begins to take preventative action. preventative action to get his company back on track and to make it stay on track on the long term. We're talking about a span of a few years here. And he doesn't contract. He doesn't cease his operations. He remembers that during the 2008 crisis, those didn't help him. He starts to expand when everyone else contracts, to stay on track and to grow. Well, Grant is older than Jenny and is much more threatened from the virus. However, after doing research, he realizes that it's not really as a big threat as the mainstream media would like us to believe. So he strategizes differently. And he doesn't only account for the perceived short-term threats, he accounts for the long-term threats as well. And he answers by connection and detachment. Who do you think is gonna win in this situation? We don't know the end results yet. However, I bet on Grant. Grant doesn't stop producing content and expanding, so confidence in him as a leader remains high. He is going to suffer less from the outcomes. He has suffered less so far, and I predict that he's going to thrive. This is because his strategic and planned reaction to fear. Facing such multifaceted threats as an economic crisis and a mysterious virus, we can't rely on our knee-jerk reactions. Relying on those instincts, in fact, may bring forth the very thing that we're afraid of. So today, we're going to take a deeper look at what is fear, how fear works, and how we can tackle it and make it our friend, not our enemy. Going back to the examples, you could say that, well, Jenny has no chance anyways. She's gonna get destroyed by the crisis because she doesn't have millions of dollars, she doesn't have a private jet, doesn't have the connections. Well, what I want to say is that they don't matter. The thing is that Grant grew up just like Jenny. He just made different decisions and had different mindsets. The millions of dollars, the company, and the private jet could not only be assets, they could also become liabilities. So Grant, I think here, is in the harder situation. He has much more to lose than Jenny. And if Jenny was to step out of her quarantine and start producing content and opening towards people, she would have a greater chance at succeeding and building up some sort of a business than Cardone, because she has much less to lose, and as a small individual, she can adapt even quicker than Grant can. Also, Grant has a huge public identity that he has to maintain because investor confidence kinda depends on that. So it turns out if Jenny would take the right action and listen to the right people, she could gain a fuck ton of advantage out of this perceived tough situation. And the key knowledge to opening up to such actions is the mastery and the healthy relationship with fear. Let's see what it entails. Let's see what fear is first. Fear is an emotional reaction, and emotions are tools. They are designed to achieve something. Fear is a tool that protects an entity. It protects its needs being met. It ensures it's meant to ensure that the entity's needs are being met. Let's see some examples. You got no money to pay the rent, so you're afraid what your landlord's gonna do. Because if he kicks you out, then your needs of safety and your need for shelter won't be met. If I'm out in nature, photographing landscapes, and while hiking, I notice something approaching me that is really similar to a wolf and is moving towards me in a steady fashion, I crap my pants with fear because I feel my need for safety and for, well, physical integrity as a human being. I feel that those are threatened. So fear is really just there to ensure that our needs are being met. Fear is also an emotion, as I've said. It's one of the most subtle emotions if you really pay attention to your body. And it is one of the strongest ones as well. It heavily affects our thinking. It biases our thinking. What is fascinating about fear as an emotion is that you're barely aware of it. It's so fast, and it comes and goes, and you take action on it on such a rapid level that it's not really your awareness at first. So what I want you to, or what is good to do here is to start feeling when you're afraid and get familiar and comfortable with that fear feeling. Start feeling fear when you're feeling it, why you're feeling it. And then you can work from that and employ one of the solutions that I've had. Which looks less ugly. This side. So how you can integrate fear into your emotional toolkit in a healthy way? Well, first up, figure out what you want. As I've said, fear is a messenger. It shows you really clearly what you don't want in life. So when you know what you don't want, you usually can figure out what you do want in life. And once you have what you want, you can go and full on chase that instead of pushing against the unwanted, which is essentially focusing on the unwanted. And we know that what we focus on, we get more of. Second way is realizing that you're in abundance. This doesn't necessarily correlate to every single fear that you have, but it will be a solution or at least a mitigation of the severity of your reactions to fear. Because fear, essentially, as I've said, is signaling that your needs are not going to be met if something happens. But you must realize, and this is going to be an advanced insight, but life flows out of an energy which is usually called source energy, and that is infinite. It's going to be flowing no matter what you do. It's like when you're in deep meditation and you can feel your heart beating and it just beats for you. You don't have to do anything. You're in abundance by nature. And if you can realize that in your first person experience and then see how this applies in life, then you're gonna be substantially less afraid, first of all, and second of all, less reactive to fear, because you'll be aware of that every single resource that you have is basically infinite. Let me prove it to you with two examples. Our first example is love. Well, let's see people loving you. People loving you is love, viewing you as you are and taking you as a part of yourself. But you really can do that yourself, honestly. and you can start feeling your emotions, start taking care of yourself. You can love as much as you want, essentially. You can love yourself as much as you want. And if you want to utilize karma to cut short, I'll do a video on that, but to cut it short, it is what you do with yourself or what you do with others, you would do with yourself. So this proves that love is basically infinite. You can do it and have it as you like. The second is money. This is going to be short. What is money? Money, in the essence, is scarce in demand resource. Because what people need is going to be worthy. It's going to have worth. They're going to be motivated to give for that thing. And, you know, the currencies are usually, you know, foreign or US dollars or gold or any of the stocks are usually just a measure of how much are they willing to give. That proves our definition. How is money infinite? As I've said, a scarce in demand resource. What people need. And since we're expanding, the universe is expanding and evolving all the time. This is its nature at the moment. People are always going to have needs. They're always going to be wanting to expand. So money will never go away. You just have to find and meet those needs. You just have to tune into the system and harvest your portion of it. The third one is spiritual practices. Spiritual practices related to emotional mastery. These make you, first of all, less fearful and less reactive to fear. You're going to be more in control of yourself. So if you're on the spot and you get caught by fear, you're going to be less reactive to it, and you're going to be able to make more strategic, Grant Cardone-like decisions. What are these practices? Few examples. You can browse them up on the internet, but to give you a starter, meditation, different forms of meditation, presence meditation, but especially mindfulness meditation are great ways to achieve more control over your fear. Also, different integration and healing modalities. For example, the completion process. Again, you can find that book in my description, and I've also included videos about meditation. I've included a video on mindfulness meditation and how to meditate in the description. And also shamanic breathing tutorial. How can you do that? And while doing these spiritual practices, you may, by nature of pure spontaneity, and by doing these practices, for example, you practice mindfulness meditation every single day, and you also do shamanic breathing like once a week, you're going to be, in half a year or in like 2 years, it depends, you're going to be substantially less reactive to fear. It's going to be incredible. It's like you're going to be a different person. And my last spiritual advice or suggestion in the realm of spiritual practices is attaining enlightenment or gaining first-person access to spiritual insights. You know, here I preach non-duality and I approach things from a holistic perspective, and that is, if you know the theory and what I'm saying here, that could be good for you to a certain extent. However, it is essential to attain such insights, I think, in your first experience, to attain such insights by yourself. Those are gonna free you up and completely transform you. For those, and for more information about those, I've included 2 books. The first one I've read, this was the foundation of my, development in awareness. Incredible book. It's The Power versus Force. And the second one is Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. It's a book especially about enlightenment. And The Power versus Force is really just, it's making you buy into this shit, because it shows how the practical connection is present between these, what a lot of people say, like goofy and new age insights, and the actual practical results that they deliver in terms of happiness and just consciousness in general. So that's all for you today from me. If you've liked this video, then please subscribe and like the video as well. It helps me great amounts. If you've got any question, of course, or want to express something, I'm open to receiving it in the comments. And what else? Stay conscious, and we'll meet the next time. Goodbye.